remember sitting across from a frazzled parent, hair a little frazzled themselves, saying, "If I don't punish my kid, how will they ever learn?" And honestly, I get it. You see your teen ignoring rules, lying about homework, or sneaking out, and that old instinct kicks in, the one that screams, "Time for a punishment." But here's the thing, punishment feels satisfying. It's quick, it's visible, and it gives you that brief sense of control. You can see the lesson being delivered right there in real time. Only, what if that lesson isn't actually sticking? What if, instead of learning responsibility, your child is just learning how to hide, lie, or resent you? Over the next few minutes, I want to take you on a little journey. We're going to explore what really teaches kids lessons that last, without turning your living room into a courtroom or your teen into a secret agent. Real-life examples, science-backed insights, and yes, a few truths that might make you rethink the way you handle misbehavior. So, before you reach for that grounding list or confiscate the phone, let's ask ourselves, are we teaching fear or teaching life skills? Oh, the old-school punishments. Grounding, scolding, confiscating phones, taking away privileges, basically anything that made a parent feel like the law. And believe me, I've watched it all play out, from the living room to the kitchen, like some sort of family courtroom drama. There's a teen caught sneaking out at midnight, a parent flaring up, and suddenly a week of grounding is decreed. Or the classic, "I'm taking your phone until you learn your lesson," which, by the way, often teaches teens exactly one thing: how to get away with lying next time. Why do these punishments feel so satisfying? Because they give instant control. When your child sulks or groans, you feel the power. It's tangible. You're asserting authority, claiming your spot as the adult in the room. It's psychologically tempting, the kind of feedback loop that makes us parents feel like we're actually teaching something important. Here's the catch, though. What looks like learning is often just fear in disguise. Psychologists call it negative reinforcement. The teen behaves to avoid an unpleasant consequence. But the moment the threat disappears, so does the compliance. The lesson isn't internalized. They don't understand why lying or skipping homework is a problem. They just know getting caught sucks. I remember a story from a friend. Her son got grounded for missing curfew. He followed the rules for 2 weeks, then found a clever loophole to sneak out without getting caught. Did he learn responsibility? Nope. He learned how to outsmart the system. That's a classic downside of punishment. It can teach cunning, secrecy, or even rebellion, instead of the values you actually want to instill. And then there's the emotional fallout. Punishment can breed resentment. Teens often shut down, withdraw, or become defiant. Instead of developing trust and communication, you get a tense household filled with silent grudges and carefully calculated mischief. In fact, research shows that chronic punishment can even erode the parent-child bond, making kids less likely to share problems or admit mistakes. That sneaky little lie to hide a grade, the hidden social media accounts, the whispered half-truths, they're all symptoms of fear, not moral failure. The irony is brutal. We punish because we love. We want our kids to learn. But often the very thing we think will teach responsibility only teaches avoidance, manipulation, or resentment. Kids are clever, and fear isn't a long-term teacher. It's a short-term motivator with some very long-term side effects. By the end of this part, it becomes clear. Punishment gives the illusion of learning, but rarely creates real understanding. It's like trying to teach someone to swim by dunking them in a pool repeatedly. They'll survive, maybe even float for a bit, but they won't really learn the skill. Here's the thing that surprises most parents. Kids don't actually learn what we think they're learning when we punish them. They're not little robots responding to fear or bribery. They're complex humans, wiring their brains for decision-making, morality, and emotional regulation. And if you want lessons that stick, you have to work with that complexity, not against it. Let's start with intrinsic motivation. This is when a child does something because it feels meaningful or satisfying to them, not because they're scared or bribed. A teen who cleans their room because they enjoy order or helps a sibling because it makes them feel competent is internalizing values. That's real learning. Contrast that with the teen who cleans the room just to avoid a grounding. Sure, the room gets clean, but the lesson, practically invisible. Then there's the power of natural consequences. Kids learn quickly when the world shows them cause and effect, without the need for parental wrath. Forget to do your homework? Your grade suffers. Ignore a curfew responsibly, and the trust you lose is painfully tangible. These consequences are immediate, personal, and real. They're lessons you can't fake with punishment. And yes, sometimes it stings, but the sting is part of what cements the learning. We also can't overlook role modeling. Children are remarkably observant. How we manage our own mistakes, disappointments, and conflicts teaches them more than any lecture ever could. If you handle frustration calmly, apologize when you're wrong, or demonstrate problem solving rather than lashing out, your teen absorbs that behavior. It's subtle, but profound. Kids learn moral reasoning and self-regulation by watching adults navigate life, not by memorizing a list of do's and don'ts under threat of punishment. And here's a key point. Guided reflection works better than scolding. When a teen lies or breaks a rule, instead of immediate punishment, take a step back and talk it through. Ask questions. What were you thinking? How could you handle it differently next time? Encourage them to reflect on the impact of their actions. You'll be amazed at how fast they start connecting the dots themselves. The brain thrives on understanding consequences, not fear. Here's a little visual. Imagine a teen juggling two balls. One ball is fear, heavy, awkward, and constantly making them stumble. The other is understanding, light, steady, and easy to catch. Punishment fills the hands with the heavy ball. Guidance and reflection. That's giving them the lighter one. They can focus, learn coordination, and eventually juggle on their own. So, if you've been relying on punishments alone, the real question is, are you teaching responsibility or just teaching fear? The science is clear. The lessons that last are those that engage the mind, respect autonomy, and encourage reflection. Here's where most parents get tripped up, confusing punishment with discipline. They're often treated like synonyms, but in reality, they could not be more different. Punishment is about control. It's reactive, fear-based, and focused on what the parent wants. Discipline, on the other hand, is about guidance. It's proactive, understanding-based, and focused on teaching your child to make better choices. Picture this. A teen breaks curfew. Punishment says, no phone for a week. Discipline says, you broke curfew, which means you lost some trust. Let's figure out why it happened and how you can rebuild that trust. See the difference? One is fear, the other is learning. One teaches avoidance, the other accountability. Discipline is all about creating internal motivation, not just external compliance. It's helping kids understand the why behind the rules, so they can make good decisions even when no one is watching. This is where long-term responsibility lives, where teenagers evolve into adults who don't just obey instructions, they understand consequences and act ethically because they want to. Real-life examples make this clear. I once observed a parent whose teen skipped studying for a test. Instead of scolding or grounding, she sat down and asked, "What distracted you? How could you plan differently next time?" The teen's first reaction was defensive, of course, but after a few guided conversations, he started taking ownership of his study habits. The results weren't instant, but the learning was permanent. Compare that to the grounding approach, compliance for a few days, followed by rebellion or sneaky behavior. Psychologically, discipline fosters self-regulation and decision-making skills. Teens learn to manage impulses, evaluate consequences, and problem-solve. Punishment teaches short-term obedience. Discipline nurtures life skills. And here's a subtle but important point. Discipline strengthens trust and communication. Your teen knows that even when they mess up, you won't react with anger. They'll have your guidance instead. That's a foundation that lasts long after grounding lists and confiscated phones have faded from memory. The narrator's perspective makes this even more vivid. Watching teens respond to guidance rather than fear is like witnessing slow, careful gardening. You can't rush growth with punishment, but with patience, reflection, and clear boundaries, they bloom into responsible, thoughtful individuals. You might feel frustrated initially because it's slower, messier, and often requires humility. But the payoff? Incredible. So drawing the line is simple. Ask yourself, am I aiming to control behavior with fear or to teach understanding with guidance? Discipline is about teaching life skills. Punishment is about asserting authority. One builds connection and competence. The other builds compliance and sometimes resentment. All right, so now that we've untangled punishment from discipline, let's talk about what actually works in the real world, because let's face it, teens aren't going to magically start making great decisions just because you've explained the concept of intrinsic motivation. We need practical, story-driven strategies that teach responsibility without turning your home into a battleground. One of the most effective approaches is reflective conversations. Imagine a teen comes home late from a friend's house, shrugging as if the rules don't apply to them. Instead of immediately shouting or grounding them, you take a seat, calm but firm, and ask, "What happened tonight? What would you do differently next time?" The goal isn't to lecture, it's to guide them to their own conclusions. It's subtle, but incredibly powerful. When teens articulate their reasoning, they start internalizing responsibility. Another strategy is natural or logical consequences. A classic example, your teen forgets homework. Instead of punishing them with extra chores, let the consequence unfold naturally. The grade suffers. Maybe they realize the next assignment matters more. Or a teen neglects their phone responsibilities, so messages go unanswered, plans fall through, or friends express disappointment. These moments are real-life feedback, teaching lessons in a way punishment rarely can. Choice and responsibility frameworks also work beautifully. Give them options. You can do your homework now and enjoy free time later, or delay it and face the natural outcome. By presenting choices, you hand them the reins while keeping boundaries intact. It's amazing how often teens rise to the occasion when they feel trusted to make decisions. Humor and relatability help too. Teens test boundaries. It's in their wiring. A little tasteful humor can diffuse tension and open the door for reflection. Something like, "Yes, I know you think your curfew is negotiable, but my schedule doesn't bend that easily. Let's find a plan that works for both of us." You're showing empathy, not weakness. Consistency is the backbone of these strategies. Teens need predictable responses to understand cause and effect. If one day you punish, another day you negotiate, and a third day you let it slide, you're teaching chaos, not responsibility. Consistency doesn't mean rigidity, it means clear expectations and follow-through, which helps teens feel safe, not trapped. Finally, celebrate small wins. Teens often get so much focus on mistakes that their successes go unnoticed. Did they handle a conflict with a sibling maturely? Finished an assignment without reminders? Highlight it. Positive reinforcement isn't bribery. It's acknowledgement of growth. It builds confidence, self-respect, and motivation. Here's the big takeaway. Punishment might stop behavior in the moment, but these strategies cultivate understanding, critical thinking, and self-discipline. It's slower, yes. Messier, yes. But in my experience, those teens who learn this way carry lessons for life, not just for avoiding parental wrath. Even with the best intentions, parents often stumble into traps that undo all the hard work of teaching responsibility. Let's talk about the most common mistakes and how to avoid them, because honestly, nothing frustrates a teen more than inconsistency or hypocrisy. First, there's inconsistent rules. One day, curfew is strict. The next, it's negotiable. One week, homework lateness is punished. The next, it's ignored. Teens are natural pattern seekers. They notice these inconsistencies immediately. The lesson they learn, rules are flexible, and testing boundaries is worth the effort. To avoid this, clarity and consistency are key. Define the rules, explain the reasoning behind them, and stick to the consequences you've outlined. Consistency isn't cruelty, It's a roadmap that teens can follow. Next up, over-punishment. Some parents feel that piling on consequences will teach a bigger lesson, but in reality, too much punishment overwhelms a teen and shuts down learning. They don't absorb lessons. They tune out, rebel, or become emotionally distant. Imagine a teen caught lying about homework, then grounded, losing privileges, and forced to apologize repeatedly. That's overkill. The takeaway: one thoughtful consequence paired with discussion beats a barrage of punishments every time. Another common pitfall is giving in to guilt or manipulation. Teens are clever. They sense when you feel bad, tired, or overworked. They'll test boundaries, not to be malicious, but to see if limits exist. If you cave too easily, you're reinforcing the behavior instead of teaching responsibility. Avoid this by calmly sticking to your rules while still showing empathy for their feelings. A simple acknowledgement like, "I understand you're frustrated, but the rules still stand," goes a long way. Then there's ignoring natural consequences. Sometimes parents swoop in to save their teen from failure or discomfort. Missed homework? You call the teacher. Forgotten assignment? You redo it for them. While it feels helpful, it denies teens the opportunity to learn from their actions. Let them face appropriate natural outcomes. They're often the most effective teachers. Finally, confusing criticism with teaching is a subtle but damaging mistake. Teens hear lectures as personal attacks, saying, "You're so irresponsible," breeds shame, not growth. Instead, frame feedback around the action. Missing your deadline caused this problem. How could you handle it differently next time? Criticism becomes guidance when it's focused on behavior, not identity. These mistakes all share one theme. They undermine the goal of teaching responsibility. By recognizing them, parents can pivot from fear-based reactions to intentional, learning-focused approaches. Teens respond to structure, empathy, and real consequences, not threats. It's a delicate balance, but one that produces independence, honesty, and maturity over time. At the end of the day, avoiding these pitfalls isn't about perfection. It's about patience, awareness, and giving teens the space to learn from life itself while staying firmly present as a guiding hand. So here's the bottom line. Punishment might stop behavior in the moment, but it rarely teaches real lessons. Teens learn best through understanding, reflection, natural consequences, and consistent guidance. Discipline, clear boundaries paired with empathy and thoughtful conversation, builds responsibility, self-regulation, and trust far more effectively than fear ever could. I'd love to hear from you. What strategies have worked or failed in your household? Share your experiences in the comments. I read them all and often respond personally. If this video gave you a fresh perspective on parenting teens, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more practical, psychology-backed advice. Remember, raising responsible kids isn't about controlling them. It's about guiding them to make the right choices, even when no one's watching.